go back further in his lineage on his mother's side, runs into the Mackays relative to Mary, Queen of Scots. It goes further than that. He goes to King James the Sixth of Scotland, and who was also the King James the First of England, who actually was, that king was the most responsible for spreading Jesus' word the farthest because he updated it in modern day English. The King James Version. Donald Trump is is related to him. Here, I'll show you in a minute. No, I did all of his lineage as far as it can go. But he's royalty in Norway, Denmark, Iceland, Scotland, Scandinavia or Germany, something. Yes, because he goes back to the Vikings too. I think that's on his dad's side. So he's royalty everywhere. But he never talks about it because, I mean, we don't do that stuff here in America. But no, he's actually on both lines of the royalties too. What is it? The Scots and he's in both lines. I know some people have seen, I've done this video many times or have brought this up. So Iceland is the best people for doing genealogy, by the way. They're the best in the world. So they did this in 2017. Donald Trump is related to most Icelanders, native Icelanders, and Danish and Norwegian royalty. Yeah. Trump is the direct descendant of Haakon V, King of Norway. So here's part of his lineage. And you could see here where the crowns are. That's King James that's the fourth. And then King Christian of Norway. And then when I went back, wait, maybe it's the other one. Because this is through King Haakon. And then there's this one. Yeah, King James the Fourth and King. So when you go back with King James, it goes back forth. That goes to a descendant with King James the First, who was the sixth. Well, the fourth would, since he goes back to the fourth, he would also be the fifth and the sixth. And the sixth King of Scotland was the first King of England. He was a good king, though. He was a good king. He's the one they tried to blow up in Parliament. He was in when the Pilgrims came to America. So, yeah, Donald Trump's lineage is everywhere. Like, he's royalty everywhere. And then when it comes to those royal lines, he's on, I forget what they call it, like the Scots and the Normans or something. I don't know if you know what I mean. He's in both lines, though. Then you have, I think it's through his dad, the Vikings, Norsemen. So people love to rip on the North. Like, you know what annoys me is I don't know if Scotland still does this, but I've always looked at, like, Scotsmen as, they're just, I guess maybe it's because of Braveheart. But that usually they're, like, you know, tough and rugged. But Scotland's been really shitty to him. Yeah, and yet then you read about some of the stuff they say, and I don't know if they still do, but, like, they didn't even want to give him his right deserved to being part of the MacLeod clan. And then I saw people ripping on the MacLeod clan. It's like, look, you want to talk about how, because they said he was his descendants then go back to Norsemen who were pillaging and, you know, raiding. And it's like, shut up, you Scots people that say that. Because you know, if you're a Scotsman, the MacDonalds and the MacLeods were constantly going at each other. I mean, hell, the MacDonalds rolled up on shore in the Hebrides at the Trumpin Church where the women were having church. And the MacDonalds put the place on fire and kept him in there, and only one girl got out alive. So to carry on like he's some bad person because he goes back to the Vikings, look at what your own clans were doing to each other back then too. Like, please, that was back in an era where, I mean, like the MacDonalds and the MacLeods, it seemed like at times they'd get along, but they were always at war with each other over something. But then it seemed like they would come together when it would come to protecting Scotland. But so to say this, it's like, then, you know, where is your backbone? Like, you Scotsmen nowadays, why don't you have that same backbone that, though, because, you know, it makes you look like pussies. Like, to carry on. Well, Donald Trump, and, you know, he was part of the Norsemen, and they came and rummaged and pillaged. Yeah, and so did the MacDonalds, and so did all of you clans back in that time. Many of you did. So to carry on, you're just trying, and this was going back a while, like 2017, but they were just trying to make him look bad any way they could. And then they were always, like trying to stall him on, it was actually Sean McConnery, the actor, that was at something where Donald Trump was trying to get his crest, like a family crest. And finally, was it McConnery? Yeah, the 006 or 007 guy. Sean McConnery, who said, just give it to him and stop the bullshit. Because he saw it was bullshit. It's like they just didn't like Donald Trump. And I know there were people that saying, well, he was coming here building his golf course. Well, he bought the land. He was entitled to it. He did. It looks beautiful there. He brought recreation. I mean, just people that just have this hate for him. And yet, it's like, stop acting like you're pure as gold. You're Scotland clans. So it's like, as a woman that, many women tend to, look at at least what the Scotsman clan used to be. But the ones I saw, like in 2017, being little whiners about Donald Trump and they were Scottish men, I thought, ooh, this is who you guys have turned into? Like, you used to be rugged and, the Mel Gibson Braveheart and, it was hardcore and sexy and, think about all those Highlander books. I mean, my sister was reading those nonstop. So seriously, it was like every woman loved that ruggedness. I mean, you're the only men that, it could be a turn on to see a man in a dress, seriously, because of the kilt. But listening to these two and some others, it's like, you're Scottish? You're destroying it. You're destroying the image. Like, because in my opinion, he's a fighter like a Scotsman. I mean, he has so much Scotsman in him. So it's like I'm listening to all this bullshit even out of Scotland about, Donald Trump did that, and he did this, and the Norse people came and pillaged, and and I thought, oh God, the men of Scotland, they're no longer Scots. I just don't think, I don't know if people could understand. It was just so stupid. But, yeah. So, and then, but he does go back to Norse. He goes back to the Vikings. He goes back to Iceland. Yeah, his relatives likely were the first people that were on Greenland, by the way. Yeah, I've looked into that. I imagine they probably were. And the very first person that came to America was a Viking. So it was probably him, too. I mean, so he has a lot of pull everywhere. And I think that's why here in America, people that have looked into his line have said that people have wondered, does he go back to the line of King David? But you can't. There's that gap where you don't know. So I mean, it seems like it would make sense that he likely would. But I've tried every way I can to tie a connection, and I can't. But he does come from. In England, I think it is. I forget. I wish I could remember the different houses. The houses, like the House of Marys or Scots or something, and then the House of Normandy. I don't know if you know what I mean. So yeah, I know he goes back to Mary, Queen of Scots, and the Mackays and all that. But he goes even further than that. So, I mean, he's definitely in this article from Iceland, and it was a fair article in all honesty. They weren't trying to rip on him. They just said he's related to every native Icelander. They have a small bit of Trump in them. And they don't seem to be, like hating all over him. But some of those Scotsmen, I don't know if they're still like that, because I had done videos. I'm like, really? Is this who you guys have turned into? Because you're ruining what women loved about Scotsmen, that you were rugged. I mean, there was a YouTube video I came across, and some guy was in Scotland, and he was a MacLeod, and he was like, yeah, the only bad thing is Donald Trump's part of my clan. And I thought, oh, you pussy. That's all I could think. I was like, he's pure-blooded. Well, he's not pure-blooded, but half pure-blooded Scot. You guys are the rough and sexy, and yeah, well, that's gone, because, you're just too sensitive about Donald Trump, so. But, yep, he's royalty.